Hello and welcome to NetXtra Insights, the membership and not-for-profit sector's foremost digital marketing podcast. Hello and welcome to what is now our third NetXtra Insights podcast, where we let daylight in upon magic and share digital marketing advice for membership and not-for-profit organisations. I'm joined, as always, by NetXtra's digital marketing analyst, Adam Butler. Hi, Adam.
Hi there, Sean.
Now, today's just going to be a pip and a dandy, I know it, and I know from our masses of recent correspondence, the one you've really all been waiting for, a look into the world of pay-per-click marketing, pay-per-click advertising specifically, such as Google AdWords, focusing also at what many of you with charitable status will want to know about, and that's Google Grants. What is it? How do I get it? How do I use it? Etc., etc. So, without further ado, Adam, just tell us, what is PPC? What is pay-per-click?
Okay, so basically PPC is Google's main revenue stream. If you weren't quite sure how Google actually made money, it was through PPC predominantly. I think about 95% of their profits are actually from advertising. And so what PPC is, obviously, is the name implies, pay-per-click advertising, is paying for someone to click your link on a search results page. So what you basically do is assign a price that you're willing to pay for a click on a particular search term or for a particular demographic, a type of person. And whenever your ad is shown and somebody clicks it, you pay a certain amount. So these fees can they're called bids because really you don't pay the exact amount that you bid. You'll pay a little bit lower than that, but you set your maximum bid. And then when someone searches for that particular keyword, if they match all the demographic info that you've selected, your advert will be shown to them in the Google search results pages.
So just for clarity, the ads of which you speak of, they're the ones that sit at the top, sometimes in yellow if I remember rightly, and the ones that go down the right-hand side of your Google search results. And I think I've seen them at the bottom as well.
Yeah.
And often marked sponsored ads.
Yeah, there's tons of those now on most Google search results pages. You'll have them at the top, at the right, at the bottom. Also kind of the Google shopping results that you see nowadays as well. So if you search for kettles, for instance, you might see on your results page that there's 10 images of kettles lined up horizontally, and those are actually not organic results. They're paid ads, as you'll see when you actually sort of inspect them a little bit closer. They're all marked as being a paid ad, obviously, because of ASA rules and that kind of stuff. So they try and keep them as inconspicuous as they possibly can and try and make it look like an organic result, because people are kind of more likely to click that than something they know for certain is an ad. But you also have to kind of tread that fine line between advertising standards and money making. So yeah, they can be quite inconspicuous sometimes.
I mean, we're talking predominantly Google here. Only this week I'm sure you've all seen it yourselves, guys. We often get these promotions through the post, or it's tucked within magazines or whatever for, I don't know, turn your £25 worth of pay-per-click marketing grants into £100 from Google. I actually got one from Bing just this week. So we're not just talking Google here.
No.
Pay-per-click advertising appears across various search engines, and I'm guessing probably all. Certainly Bing, certainly Google. I mean, I guess Yahoo and Lycos and...
I don't know about any other. I know for certain that Yahoo, Bing and Google run advertising like that. I'm not sure. I'm fairly sure sort of search engines like DuckDuckGo, and I guess maybe like the Chinese one as well, the Baidu search. I'm sure they have paid ads as well. I guess the biggest difference there is just the volume of people that will be seeing your adverts. So, for instance, some of the studies that I've looked at in the past have said that whilst you might not get as many clicks on the Bing network running kind of PPC campaigns, the traffic that actually comes through to your site from Bing is a lot more likely to convert than Google search traffic. But I'm sure that depends a lot on the type of niche that you're in and the type of people that you're actually advertising to. But it does seem like you can get kind of a lot more of a efficient PPC campaign running on Bing. And the other luxury you have there essentially is that you can just go through into Google, set up your Google AdWords campaign, and you can just import that straight over into Bing without making too many changes. I mean, you would probably want to change your average bid values and that kind of stuff, because companies don't really tend to spend as much per click on the Bing network, because obviously you're getting a lot less sort of traffic for your money. But having said that, it can be worth it for a lot of different niches. So definitely it's not too difficult to transfer over to the Bing network. So it's definitely something that's worth trying. Yeah.
And let's be clear here, pay-per-click advertising isn't the soul of search engines particularly. I mean, it could apply to banner ads on websites as well, couldn't it?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, some banner ads are run on a pay-per-click basis, some are just run on a pay-per-mile basis, so you kind of get your 1,000 impressions rather than any amount of clicks.
Or mostly on time. As I'm seeing increasingly.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. It begs the question, really, though, if my SEO is up to scratch, and we talked about SEO in quite some depth in previous podcasts, but if that's up to scratch, why on earth would I even need pay-per-click advertising?
I guess the most important point, would be that you're increasing the likelihood of someone actually clicking a link to your site. So if you do have the top organic result, as well as the top paid search result, then that's just double the real estate that you're getting in front of that particular searcher. The more important point, I guess, would just be that, if you are the first organic result, there's nothing to stop someone from just paying 25 pence, per click to get above you in those paid search results. So, as good as your SEO is, there's always going to be a paid ad above that in most instances, unless someone's really searching for your brand business name. It's always fairly likely that there's going to be a paid search result kind of coming in above you. The other thing is that, it's kind of implied that if your SEO is up to scratch, people will be getting the most relevant results that your page has to offer, because Google kind of, if you're searching again for blue kettles, the likelihood is that if you had a page dedicated to blue kettles, that Google would send that searcher there. But in plenty of instances that isn't what happens. So PPC also gives you the benefit of being able to actually define what page a particular search term and a searcher will land on of your website. So it kind of takes the control out of Google's hands and kind of gives it back to you, so you know that someone will go through onto this page, and then you can kind of refine their user journey from that page. So a big part of the PPC is obviously the keywords, but I think the most overlooked aspect of PPC is actually having landing pages that are optimized for particular purposes. So, the more people that actually come through to a certain page, if you can test that and optimize it, then it's only going to be a benefit in the future. So
but I'm also guessing the first thing that comes to my mind, and I thought it'd possibly be one of the first things, but I hear what you say, is I guess the immediacy of having pay-per-click. I mean, I'm guessing SEO, as we've again discussed before, it's going to take some time to get some decent organic results. So I'm thinking that pay-per-click advertising, another benefit could be the immediacy of getting something actually on page one, rather than waiting it to filter through organically.
Yeah, definitely, that is a benefit. That's kind of...
I mean, it might be that you have to throw a lot of money at it as a sponsored ad to begin with to get anywhere near any decent listing. But at least throw enough money at it, you'll get a decent listing.
Yeah, no, that's the point. And I guess the other part of this is also that if your SEO was up to scratch, I would kind of take that as meaning that your analytics were up to scratch as well. And so what that would give you is a kind of an understanding of the value of a visitor. And so in that instance, if you understood that on average a value of a visitor to your website was 50 pence and you were paying 20 pence per click on the PPC campaign that you were running, you could pretty much guarantee that for every click that came through, you were on average ending up on top and getting a return on your investment. So there's plenty of benefits to PPC, really.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned return on investment. We'll come on to that later. How quickly can people expect to see some results then from pay-per-click campaigns? Which I guess touches on what I just said.
Exactly. Yeah, well, I mean, it's pretty instant, to be honest. I mean, a few years ago, you did have to wait like an hour or two while it was kind of manually checked and this kind of stuff, because obviously Google didn't want, they have a set list of criteria of things that you can't advertise. such as pharmaceuticals and that kind of stuff. I think anything that's kind of not for human consumption, that kind of stuff. But nowadays, I think, you know, when I've done them in the past, as soon as that campaign's set up, barring there being any kind of flagged words, I can't remember what
I can remember one I used to get picked up on quite a lot when I used to do it myself for NetXtra. Was I guess it was just the way I wrote things, but it always used to pick me up on having too many capitals.
Okay, yeah, can do that, yeah.
Which is clever.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain terms that you might not expect to be picked up on because they correspond to a completely different industry. So you might find that one of your phrases is actually a brand name of a kind of diet pill or something like that.
Right.
So that's really the only problems that you'll ever encounter. So as soon as you actually have defined what keywords you want to bid on, how much you're willing to pay, and also what adverts you want shown, as soon as you've done that, the campaign's live and people will start seeing it. So it's pretty instantaneous, yeah.
Okay. I know we touched on it before. What sort of platforms should we consider? I mean, Google is, I'm guessing, the obvious one.
Yep.
I mentioned Bing before. I've seen up in the States on that front with a big promotion on, you know, getting free advertising and increasing your credit and what have you. Are there any other platforms aside from Bing and Google that we should possibly look at? I guess it all comes down to traffic ultimately.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard to beat those two guys.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, those are the two ones. I mean, with Bing, you just sort of check the box that says, you know, show these ads on Yahoo search networks as well. So yeah, that's basically it. I mean, with Bing as well, you're kind of talking about, you know, if someone's using Internet Explorer and, you know, their search engine is set to ask.com or something like that, you know, people get quite annoyed at that.
Yeah.
And again, something like ask.com will still be going through Bing, so you'll still see those Bing adverts and that kind of stuff. I can't think of any other actual PPC kind of platforms that compare to kind of Google and Bing, really.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, give us an idea of cost. I mean, I guess how long is a piece of string?
Yeah, essentially.
Depending on what you're looking at.
Yeah, like I say, the cost is all relative, really. So, like I say, once you've got an idea of the average value of a visitor, it should become fairly apparent what the right amount to bid on a particular keyword is.
Like you say, that can range from pence to several pounds.
Yep, yeah. I mean, I've heard of particular industries such as injury lawyer. I've heard that the larger ones of those can be paying anywhere up to sort of £60 per click.
Really?
Yeah, so £60 just to bring one person to your site because it's worth that much for them. That if they actually do bag you, then
you're right. It comes back to return on investment ultimately.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's always best. I mean, the strategy is, and it kind of muddies the waters a little bit, but generally you are better off paying or bidding as much as you can possibly sort of stomach bidding that makes business sense, because the higher up you get, the more clicks you are more likely to get, and the more clicks you get, the higher your quality score. And I guess we'll be coming on to quality score in a while.
Yeah.
But that is the kind of the rule book to Google pay-per-click, is just to be really mindful of the quality score and how that affects things, because that is a real key thing to get right in terms of success. So.
Okay, we'll come on to quality score in a second. Obviously, this podcast is all about not-for-profits, memberships.
Yep.
As a not-for-profit or a membership, what's in it for me?
I think something that's really quite underutilised would be particularly like search marketing or PPC campaigns for a particular campaign that the not-for-profit or membership sector organisation is going to be running, essentially. So what you could have is, if you've got quite a new campaign that you want to draw attention to and that kind of stuff, you could easily have it so that was, you know, a link to that was displayed when people did certain, you know, made certain searches that corresponded to that particular campaign or to that particular organisation. I think in particular to sort of not-for-profits, they're eligible for a thing called Google Grants.
Yeah, and obviously that's something we'll be coming on to very shortly, which is kind of one of the reasons we did this podcast, because there's a lot of people out there, not-for-profits and memberships, that really want to know about this stuff. Sorry, I cut across you.
Again, just being a not-for-profit or a membership sector organisation, it's still possible for these entities to kind of get an understanding of the average value of a visitor and then put that into practice into PPC. And I know on the face of it, you know, when you initially hear of kind of paying for traffic or paying for clicks, there's something almost sort of backwards about that, in that, you know, you got on the internet, you had this website built so that people would find you, and so the idea of paying for clicks through to your website does seem a little strange at first glance, but like I say, when you have your analytics in order and you understand, the value that the visitors are bringing to your organisation, then it makes it a lot easier to justify, and it makes a lot more sense when you really understand that.
But as you said, you touched on the Google Grants, and like I say, we will explain a bit more about that shortly. And it kind of ties into my next question about return on investment. But ultimately, there is a lot of help out there, free help, especially coming from Google in terms of the Google Grant, where memberships, or certain memberships and certain not-for-profits, don't actually have to shell out bucket loads of cash to actually get a campaign going.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I mean, there was a lot of bad press sort of 6 or 7 months ago in terms of some of the resellers of Google AdWords and Google PPC campaigns kind of not being particularly helpful to certain companies and organisations, and actually kind of just using it as a way of kind of generating more advertising revenue for themselves rather than really helping the customer there. But having said that, I mean, it really is in Google's best interest to kind of keep the search results, as a higher quality as possible, and not let people really game the system, because at the end of the day, Google's bread and butter is just, being a great search engine.
We've talked at length, and we keep dropping in and out of it, certainly from the membership and not-for-profits perspective, Google Grants. I mean, let's pinpoint what is Google Grants in a nutshell.
Okay, so Google Grants, in a nutshell, would be a variety of services that Google offers to not-for-profit organisations. These are things like free AdWord budget. They're also sort of free access to a service called Google Apps, which has a variety of functionality, such as kind of an email inbox and different things like that. But for the purposes of this, I think when we're talking about Google Grants, what we're talking about is Google Grants for advertising, which is a $10,000 a month in-kind advertising sort of budget for search engine marketing on the Google search network. And so what that basically gives you is a budget of $329 a day, and that allows you to kind of bid up to $2 for a click on particular search terms.
Has that gone up? I was going to say it used to be $1, wasn't it?
I've
always preached that it was $1.
Yeah, no, it's $2.
Inflation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of the more cynical people out there kind of imply that this $2 limit, being raised from $1 to $2 is to kind of keep the minimum spend high across sort of search terms and that. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is that you might bid $2 and you might pay $1.85 for a click, but you still you don't get sort of top spot listings if there's someone who's advertising on that same search term but isn't a Google Grants recipient.
Thinking off the top of my head here, I'm guessing it all comes down to a large degree, like SEO, to long tail phrases and search terms. So in other words, I'm guessing for memberships and not-for-profits, and shoot me down in flames if I'm wrong here, their long tail phrases, which is the long phrases that and keywords that you're using for your ads to be found, will be quite different from most people out there. I mean, okay, you could be competing against another charity, perhaps, for, I don't know, a certain particular phrase. Maybe two cancer charities are fighting over the same phrase. I can't think of one off the top of my head. But I'm guessing to a large degree, there's, because of these certain long-term phrases, long-tail phrases, I think is what they call them, isn't it? That if you get them right, you should be fairly okay on your campaigns. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think the thing you have to remember with, I guess, long tail keywords and long tail search terms. So, just as an example of that, a kind of a standard search term would be something like a Microsoft keyboard. An example of that in a long tail search would be something like, my Microsoft keyboard is broken, how do I fix it? So that you can kind of get a read on the intention of the search a lot better on a long tail search term like that. But in order to really target phrases like that, for instance, if you were a keyboard repairer, what you would be bidding on there essentially is, rather than how do I fix my Microsoft keyboard, you would be bidding on the words Microsoft keyboard and fix. So you kind of you can approach it from that angle. The other thing to bear in mind though as well is just that you really want to keep the PPC campaign focused on keywords that you know will convert. because what may happen is if you're targeting long tail searches like that, the end effect is just that less people who are actually searching are clicking your ad, which then decreases your quality score and ends up kind of costing you more money. So really the idea is just to start off small and very, very targeted to ones that you know will bring you relevant traffic.
Okay, well, that kind of explains Google Grants quite nicely. Who qualifies? Because I'm guessing, well, I know that not everybody, even if you're a membership or not-for-profit, will necessarily qualify for this.
Yeah, so I mean, Google have their own criteria that they say. I mean, there's very few kind of concrete restrictions. A few of the things they say is that it can't be a government entity, it can't be a healthcare provider or organisation to be eligible for the Google Grants and you also have to comply with certain employment laws and that kind of stuff, and say that you're kind of, you're anti-discriminatory in your hiring processes and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I mean, it's just as long as you're not a kind of healthcare organisation, a school or a government organisation, you generally find as long as you actually have not-for-profit status. That is the main thing. You do need
that's a charitable number.
Yeah. You have to be in possession of a charitable number, and have charitable status in the country that you're going to be advertising to, and that's it. And then it's just down to their discretion. So you sort of fill out your application form, which is very, very short, considering you're basically applying for a grant. It's incredibly easy to go through, and then it just comes down to Google's discretion as to whether they think that you fall into any of these categories.
And how long do they take to reach their decision?
Anywhere from a day to a week, no longer than that really. And you can appeal it, but I think you only get one bite at that cherry.
And do they make recommendations?
No, it's not normally about any kind of inconsistencies in the application or anything like that. It's just, if you're an organisation with a charitable status, such as, I mean, you hear of some funny ones, like NFL teams in America, even though they're making billions a year, they still have charitable status and that kind of stuff. So there's funny things like that where obviously if Google don't, whoever it is that's on the other end assessing your application, if they don't think you quite qualify for, you don't fulfil the criteria of improving the world or whatever it is that they kind of have there, then you do find that without real reason you're kind of turned down. So, and
we touched on the restrictions just back then. I mean, that we talked about the maximum bid for each term as being $2. I mean, are there other things like, I don't know, can you only spend so much a day on a campaign? Are there sort of budget limits and things like that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's $10,000 a month, and that doesn't just average out at £329 a day. That's actually the maximum that you can spend per day. Like I say, the $2 maximum bid, and it's quite a shame that they've done this really, because I know a lot of people were, especially in the charity sector, were getting a lot of mileage out of actually using their Google Grants AdWords to funnel people to their social media accounts for certain searches, and then off the back of that, people would then go from social media to the actual not-for-profit web page. But Google's set it now so that you can only link to one single domain that you have to define when you start up. So if you were the Red Cross, all of your paid search has to go to redcross.co.uk. You can't send it to any other sort of domain, even though it might be, a different Red Cross in a different country. It still has to go to the initial domain that you set out in your initial status. And I think that it doesn't, the budget doesn't transition over to the Google Display Network either, so I think it is just can only be used on the search.
Okay, I was going to bring that up actually later. It's one of the questions I have here. I mean, something that we got asked about. Somebody asked the question a few weeks ago. I mean, what is the Display Network, and why on earth should we care? I mean, is it not relevant at all as far as Google Grants is concerned?
In terms of Google Grants, I don't think it is too relevant. But that's not to say that there's no reason to put effort into actually being on there. I don't know if they actually...
What is it, first of all? Because we're going to make a few assumptions on what it is. It's a lot of display time adverts, is it?
Yeah, basically, when you see a banner advert on a website, chances are that's a Google Display Network banner. And so, essentially, how Google Display Network works is, as a website, you can say, okay, I'm willing to show some ads here, and I will let Google manage which ads get shown on my website. So Google looks at the type of people that are visiting the website, and then they, as a Google Display Network advertiser, you can say, okay, I want to target this certain demographic of people, or I want to target people that are visiting this website.
Yeah.
And so in the past, I think people got fairly weak results from doing that. But nowadays, I mean, Google's gotten so good at being able to kind of target people and actually understand people that are searching that I think probably quite a lot of people have experienced this in the past. You go to somewhere like Oak Furniture Land and you're looking at beds, and then for the next month after that you're constantly hit with Oak Furniture Land banner adverts saying, oh, have you thought about buying an oak bed, and all this kind of stuff. And whilst that is annoying for most people, I think the results that companies are seeing off the back of this kind of remarketing is really, really powerful. So I think a lot of people are starting to use the Google Display Network a lot more efficiently to drive conversions. And I think with campaigns in particular, some of the campaigns that certain not-for-profit organisations and membership organisations run, I think you could get some really, really good results from being on the Google Display Network and doing some banner advertising on that.
What, separate paid for outside of Google Grants?
If you're really looking to push a campaign, or gain some momentum and some public support for a particular, if you're a union or something like that, then I think display network advertising can be really powerful.
We've talked a lot about return on investment here. I mean, obviously, again, talking from a membership and a not-for-profits perspective, obviously they're going to find it very difficult to justify return on investment. Every penny matters, really. I mean, can they justify the ROI, especially given, obviously the Google grants out there giving them help towards that?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you still need to justify that ROI.
Yeah, well, I think it takes a lot of the heat off if the $10,000 budget you're using is just being kind of granted to you or given to you, rather than kind of using company money to do that. But even still, I think, like I say, it really does all come back to having an understanding of how much value your website visitors can offer you as an organisation. It should be fairly easy if you're in a position where you know that every month visitors to your site generate the equivalent of £4,000 worth of benefit for you, I guess. So the good thing about that is that you're always aware of what your return on investment is. So if it is poor, then you can at least work on that and try and figure out why. And chances are, if you are getting a poor return on investment, there's always just sort of two main culprits there, I guess, which would be that you're not getting a high enough quality score, which means that you're having to pay a lot more per click.
Okay, you've moved on quite nicely.
Right.
It links quite nicely, and I'll come back to that in a second. You talk about quality score, and we've talked about it a few times. Explain, what is quality score?
So like I said earlier, kind of Google, it is in Google's best interest, even though they're selling ad space, it's still in Google's best interest to kind of give the end searcher the result that's going to help them. So for instance, if you were just able to bid on any keyword and get the top spot for it really easily, I think what you would find happening is that Google wouldn't be the best search engine to use anymore, because, like I say, if you're searching for Microsoft keyboards, if you type that into Google and someone's willing to pay £10 for that search term per click to get you through to their website that sells blue pianos, for instance, I mean, that's not relevant to your search, and you're going to start thinking worse of Google if they're sending you somewhere like that on a search. So the quality score, I think, is their way of kind of ensuring that there's some sort of algorithm whereby the best result is more likely to be at the top. So for instance, if you've got 3 advertisers and they're all bidding on the same keyword, what Google does is essentially kind of look at the keyword that they're bidding on, look at their ad text and how relevant that is to their keyword, and then look at the page that they're sending people through to. And upon analysing that, they'll be able to tell fairly easily whether or not that page corresponds to that particular search term. And the other thing that they look for is, and I think this has become a lot more prominent and people have started to understand this a lot more clearly nowadays, is just that the click-through rate on the ads themselves that get displayed, if for instance you start off an ad campaign and you're at position 3 but your ad text that people read actually on the search engine results, so your little advert that gets sort of placed on the right-hand side, if that gets a lot more clicks than Google expects it to get, then it moves up and it gives you a higher quality score, because they can see, okay, this ad's obviously really relevant and really engaging people that are searching for it, because 10 times more people are clicking it than we would expect to click. So that's a big part of the quality score. And so how quality score kind of affects a paid search campaign is by the kind of the Google calculation, where they kind of, like I say, if you had 3 people bidding on the same keyword, how do they actually decide who goes where? And a big part of that is the quality score, more so than actually how much they're willing to pay. So a quality score goes from a scale of sort of 1 to 10. Very, very, very few websites and PPC campaigns actually have quality scores of 10. Mostly they're around sort of 6 to 8, a decent one.
And are there ways, as you're setting this stuff up, are there ways of actually knowing what your quality score is?
It does tell you initially,
okay.
But like I say, if you're building a campaign from scratch, it does give you a quality score based on the keyword, the ad text, and the page that it's linking through to.
Yeah.
But it doesn't yet factor in the actual click-through rates of that.
No, okay.
So that's the other big thing of that. But really, the higher your quality score, the less you have to pay to get above people is the real where that factors in. So, you could be paying 30 pence per click, where a person below you could be paying £1 per click, just because you have a far higher quality score than they do. And it's all kind of calculated in conjunction with kind of every other factor that's taken into account, but by and large, quality score's the most important bit to get right in a PPC campaign, because it has really long-term effects and can make your ad, your PPC campaign a lot more expensive than it needs to be.
There's a lot of stuff in there, and it kind of makes me think, and it's a reason some people come to us as a not-for-profit or even as a for-profit. Setting up this stuff, there's a lot of components in that quality score stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of people will outsource that.
Uh-huh.
Now, obviously, that will affect their return on investment. Companies don't do that, and I include us in that. Won't necessarily do it for nothing. Mm-hmm. There's obviously going to be a management fee involved, so the return on investment becomes ever more important. So what are the advantages in having clarify, what are the advantages of having a pay-per-click or Google Grants managed by a third party?
Well, I guess the fact that you have someone who has experience and is dedicating specific time and resources to managing a PPC campaign, I think if you kind of do away with the risk of, if you bring it in-house and you have someone who's not really that experienced in it, you do hear some horror stories of not checking the right box or doing something that's probably not optimal and just sinking hundreds of pounds a day into an ineffective PPC campaign. The other real big benefit of that is also if the company that your website is hosted with, the developers of your website, if that's the same company as you outsource your PPC management to, that's always going to be a bonus to you, because getting those landing pages optimized and doing all the work on the site that needs doing in order to get that PPC campaign to run efficiently, that's kind of half the battle done then. Because if you're having to go back and forth between your development company and PPC management company, as well as kind of tying that in with the company in question or the organisation in question, then it can get quite confusing quite quickly. So it's always best to kind of just, if you can, have the one company doing it and performing the reports and that kind of stuff. Because again, the other really important thing is actually understanding the kind of monthly reports that you're given for PPC and kind of explaining your ROI and this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Making sense of it is really half the battle there. Yeah. So that's the big benefit that you're really paying
and that's if I would implore anything, it would be that. If you're employing a third-party agency, get them to produce reports every single month and justify their existence, ultimately. Because like you say, if they're not producing a return on investment, then they're not doing the job properly, and it's a pointless exercise. So keep a close eye on that and work closely with your agency.
The what you should be paying for, if you are paying for a third party to manage your PPC, is kind of pruning out the keywords that aren't productive or giving you a good return on investment, optimizing bids, optimizing and testing ad text that gets displayed on the actual Google search results pages, and just optimizing the quality score overall. So there's definite things that they should be doing and should be reporting on to you. So just be aware that there's sort of concrete facts that they can be reporting and ROI that needs reporting, rather than just the amount of clicks or the amount of impressions that you get every month.
Good stuff.
Brilliant.
I think we're there. Guys, what I would say, thanks Adam, as always, some really great information there. What I would say, there is a whole blog article, our Insights article, on our website, www.netextra.net/insights, INSIGHTS. You'll see a Google Grants article on there all about what we've talked about today and more. So I'd encourage you to go and see that. Also sign up to our newsletter, things like that coming out every month in our monthly Digital Insights newsletter. By the way, if you need help with your Google Grant application, please get in touch with us and we'll happily guide you through the process. Just get in touch with us at NetXtra or call us on 01787 319 393, and like I said before, visit our website at www.netextra.net, or you can send us an email to info@netextra.net as well. So that's it. Thanks again, Adam, and also to all of you guys for taking the time to download and listen to our podcasts. But for now and until next month, it's goodbye.
Cheers.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks again for taking the time to download this podcast, brought to you by the nice folk at NetXtra, the membership and not-for-profit sector's leading digital marketing experts. To find out more of our other podcasts, simply search for us in iTunes or visit our Insights pages at www.netextra.net/insights. If you're a membership or not-for-profit organisation and want to find out more about our digital and online marketing products and services, please do call us on 01787 319 393. And for those of you outside the UK, simply dial 441787 319 393. You can also browse our website at www.netextra.net, where you'll find loads of information about what we do and, more importantly, who we do it for.